Hello, I'm Hoyt Hilsman. I'm a journalist and author. I'm a regular contributor to national publications, including the Huffington Post and others. I'm also the chairman of the United Democratic Headquarters, which is a regional coalition of Democratic clubs and grassroots in Southern California. Recently, I had a discussion with a sold-out group of audience members and a colleague of mine about the landscape of American politics. And that covered everything from the national scene down to our California state and local offices. The conversation was highly attended and sold out, actually. And a number of people have asked me if I could do a video that would give a brief overview of some of our conversation. What we did was we started at the national level and acknowledging that we have a highly partisan situation in Congress and in the government, and that there won't be a lot of policy made in the next 2 years in the run-up to the presidential election. Perhaps there might be some work done on border and immigration policy, maybe some progress on crime, gun control, and then support for Ukraine. But just looking at the political situation, the presidential race has already started with Donald Trump, Nikki Haley on the Republican side entering, and it's expected that Joe Biden and a number of others will be vying for the presidential nomination. The interesting thing is that among both Democrats and Republicans, folks are looking for new faces. The current polls are saying that Biden is only supported by about 40% of Democrats who'd like to see him run again. 60% want to see a new face. Similarly, with Republicans, about 60% want to see a new face other than Donald Trump. Biden, it seems, is pretty set on running, and at this point, you'd say he's a favorite, even though his ratings, his popularity is somewhat underwater. It's been boosted a little bit this late winter and early spring, but it's still hovering around 45, 46%. We'll have to see in terms of the Biden race where his poll numbers stand by the fall, say early fall. I would think would be when you would get an announcement, or you'd have a much better idea of whether or not he'll face any opposition. Politics is ever changing, and it may depend on factors like the economy and things that happen over the summer. In any case, there are other kind of candidates for the job among Democrats. As many people say, Biden's problem isn't really political, it's more actuarial. He's 80 years old now. He'd be 86 by the time he finished a second term. So this concerns people, particularly since it's possible that he might not be able to finish the term, and his vice president, who is currently Kamala Harris, would succeed him. She has particularly low performance ratings at this point, popularity ratings. So that's a big question in terms of going forward. One of the things that people ask about the Democratic presidential is what's the alternative? And so far, there's no single alternative for sure. There are possibilities of other Democrats who might throw their hats in the ring. Let me just list a few of them. A number of governors, Roy Cooper, North Carolina, Andy Bashar from Kentucky, Jared Polis from Colorado, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. Any number of those, including Gavin Newsom of California, might be potential candidates. You also have Pete Buttigieg, who's in the cabinet, Amy Klobuchar, who's the senator, Sherrod Brown, the senator from Ohio. I'm sure I'm leaving out some possibilities, but that's a large number already. On the Republican side, obviously Ron DeSantis is polling well against Trump, but there are other candidates that may emerge. Nikki Haley has already announced. Ted Cruz, Mike Pompeo, Glenn Youngkin, Governor of Virginia, Mike Pence, and then Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, are all possibles. So we'll just have to see. And I don't think you can really make any predictions. It's always impossible in politics anyway. But I think that where we are now is probably not where we're going to be in September, one way or the other. From the point of view of the Democrats, they have a very challenging 2024 in terms of the Senate races. The Democrats have 23 seats that are up for re-election that they need to defend against Republicans. The Republicans have only 10 seats that they have to defend. And I would say that there are at least half a dozen of those seats that are toss-ups or at least close. The Arizona race is one very interesting one. Since Kyrsten Sinema has left the Democratic Party, it's hard to say how that will emerge, if it'll be a three-way race or what might happen there. In Michigan, Debbie Stabenow, who's a long-term incumbent, is retiring. John Tester of Montana has announced that he's going to run for re-election, but that's a very red state, so he has a challenge. In Nevada, Jackie Rosen, that's always a very close race, and it has a slight majority of Republican registration now, so Jackie Rosen has a challenge there. Sherrod Brown, who's had a couple of terms in Ohio, is also challenged because that state is increasingly red, and it's hard to say whether he can survive, even though he's managed pretty well so far. Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, also that's always considered a swing state, and he may have some challenges there. And then, of course, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, which is a very high red state, 22% Republican advantage. He's up for re-election. So those are all challenges. It's hard to say where the Republicans might be challenged, but it's certainly not, they don't have the kind of challenges that the Democrats are looking at. In the congressional races, always in a congressional year, in a presidential year, the turnout is higher, which generally favors Democrats. And that means that there may be some turnover in the House, again, switching back to the Democrats, if turnout remains high and the presidential nominee is reasonably popular or looks like he or she is going to be successful. These races, particularly in California, in Southern California, we have 3 or 4 races that certainly could flip back to Democrats. In New York, there were some surprises, including the George Santos election that would normally be Democrat districts that should flip back. So I'm personally more optimistic about taking the House back than retaining the Senate. Finally, locally, we have a number of our state assembly and state senate and congressional seats that are up for that are going to be vacant open seats. Adam Schiff has announced that he's running for the Senate, and a number of folks have announced to run for his congressional seat, including the current state senator Anthony Portantino, who is termed out. At the same time, the assemblyman from our local area in Pasadena, Claremont, is Chris Holden, and he's termed out. He's announced that he's running for the 5th supervisorial district held by Catherine Barger, a Republican, and that should be a hotly contested race. Folks have already stepped up for that assembly seat that's being vacated by Chris Holden, and that includes Falante Riddle, who's a political activist, community organizer in town, and also Felicia Williams, who's a current city council member of Pasadena City Council. I imagine there'll be more folks who will jump in. I should mention on the congressional side also, Assemblywoman Laura Friedman has announced for the congressional seat that has been held by Adam Schiff. Just to wrap it up, in Pasadena, we have 5 local city council and mayoral elections coming up. for districts 1, 2, 4, 6, and also the mayoral seat. So those will be contested. And, you know, as is typical lately, there's these are expensive races, and it's not like the old days when people could get by with a few yard signs and some walking. Now you have media and lots of attention and lots of money spent in local races. That's also true for our local school board races. Pasadena City College has 3 seats up for re-election. Those can be quite contested. We had a big turnover in the last election with 3 new board members, and then the PUSD, Pasadena Unified School District, will have been elections in I think at least 3 districts. So that's the wrap up. It should be a very busy year coming up. Hopefully it won't get started hot and heavy until September, because I think we all get a little tired of politics and the political commercials and everything else is going on. But expect a big year in politics in a few months. So thank you for joining me, and this is Hoyt Hilsman again, giving you an update on the landscape of American politics and local politics. And we'll try to do these briefings every month or two. All right, take care.